Howdy spacers, and welcome back to Blank Space Dolls. For this tutorial, I decided to give my twisted fashions a break while I decided on my subscriber suggested themes, so instead let's do something sweet, quite literally. As inspiration for this custom, I used Sweet Lolita styles inspired by chocolates, cookies, and other baked goods, velvets, bonnets, and intricate detailed braids with color focused on browns and pastel pinks. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here and join the Spacer family. Now grab a snack of your own and let's get into this sweet inspired custom. As a base for this project, I decided to use this gingerbread house as I love her deep tan skin tone and I think it contrasts so beautifully with her hot pink hair, which sadly we had to get rid of. And of course I'm going to use 100% acetone to wipe off her factory hair and factory face, and to prep her to begin to reroot. For the reroot, I do use this curly doll hair, which I picked up at Hobby Lobby and I have used before on a previous tutorial, so I'll make sure to leave that in an iCard above. Then we can safely tuck the hair away and give it an initial spray of Mr. Super Clear and begin the face-up process. As usual, I always go in with a watercolor pencil similar to the skin tone or the base doll that I'm using, and I begin to sketch out those initial features, mainly starting with the eyes and just giving them the shape that I want them to have. And for this one, I am always using my tried and true Derwent Inktense watercolor pencil, and this is actually in Saddle Brown, which is slightly darker than I think I wanted it to be, but I think that it's still light enough to where I can erase it if I did make any mistakes. And I just sketch in that eye shape and I begin to sculpt out those eyebrows in the shape that I want. And you'll know my signature eyebrows, I always leave a blank space in the beginning of it, and I don't know why, but it just helps me make sure to remember to put in those individual hairs at the end. And I recently discovered this pastel palette by Jane Davenport, which I'll try to link it below if I can find it, but I randomly found it inside of a Hobby Lobby as well, and they're very similar to pan pastels in my opinion. I do like that you get a variety of colors, and there's a bunch of different color stories for the palettes, and I'm actually going to use this to begin to blush her cheeks. Normally I use my Schminky soft pastels, but I've realized that the color doesn't really match all of the skin tones that I use it for, so this is very handy to have because it does come with different variations, warm and cool versions of pinks and oranges that I think I can use, and they'll complement a few more skin tones than what I'm used to. And then I'm also going to go in with that light tan color from that same pastel palette and begin to add shadows around her eye sockets, around her nose, and right underneath her lips. And just to add a little bit more sweet to this custom, I am going to draw some tiny little hearts on her cheeks, mainly on one side, but there will be two different sizes, a larger one and then a really small one that I'm going to fill in pink. And I just think, like I said, this adds to the sweetness of the doll and just gives her face a little bit more interest without adding too much. With that, most of the base colors are down, so in the next few clips you're going to see I speed through the rest of the face-up process, but I did still want to show all of the layers that it takes to get the opacity that you're looking for. In the fourth layer is where I add the eye shines, and you can really see how it brings them to life, and then adding Liquitex high gloss varnish to the lips adds a little bit more. Then we can unwrap the head and you can see here what the curly hair looks like with her new face up. I am obsessed with this curly hair. Now moving on to the star of the show, the outfit. I really wanted to create a layered dress look with this outfit, and it's completely different from things that I've done before. I think that I have created layered looks before, but I really wanted to do something very sweet and very Lolita inspired. So here you can see some of the fabrics and materials that I'm using, as well as this really cool rickrack that's from 1974, which I think is amazing, and it still has this rich brown color. And for the first time, I'm actually going to be using bought patterns, and I actually got these from DJ Requiem Art Designs on Etsy, which I'll make sure to leave a link to the exact pattern that I used in the description box. I start by cutting out the petticoat first on my brown fabric, and I love this fabric because it reminds me of a waffle cone for some reason. And then for the skirt, I'm actually going to be cutting that out of this white-based fabric with the sweets on it. And here you'll see the two fabrics cut out. Obviously the top skirt is a little bit larger and longer than the bottom skirt because the petticoat is supposed to be a little bit more fitted underneath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by hemming the bottom of that sweets fabric And by taking that in at a centimeter and folding it over and just finishing that edge, because it is going to be seen on the top, so I wanted to make sure that it had a really clean edge. And as usual, which is going to become a norm for me, I'm showing the sewing on my machine. And I got quite a few comments saying that you guys enjoyed seeing this, so I'll make sure to include that going forward. So I'm really excited that I am able to. I am, however, going to figure out the best method of recording this, because I think this angle is quite odd, so I may just have to change my recording setup for this area just a little bit, but you'll see that in coming videos. Once that hem is complete, I go in with this pink crochet lace and put it on the wrong side of the skirt and sew right against the same hemline that I just created, trying to stay right on that same thread line that I did before when hemming the skirt. Then I go in and do the same thing for the petticoat using the same methods I used for the overskirt, just using this pleated pastel pink ribbon instead. And here's what both of those skirts look like once they're completed, and you can see here that I still don't really like this top seam where I double stitched that lace trim on the white, so that's where I'm actually going to incorporate this rickrack and line across that line. And I pin it in place and then hand stitch all the way around. Although I did purchase this pattern, I did want to alter it a little bit because I wanted a long puff sleeve, so here you'll see me just extending those lines out a little bit more so that way I can get my long puff sleeve that I'm looking for, and I just extend those seam lines on the side and then right down the center. Although looking back, it wasn't quite in the center, so if you attempt this, please try to make it more centered. It doesn't really alter the shape at all, but it probably would be better to have it a little bit more symmetrical. And you'll see here I'm just drawing multiple lines through the pattern just to kind of give me a guideline to draw and make sure that I follow the bell shape that I'm looking for and it seems a little bit more even. Then I'm going to take the bodice pattern and our new altered sleeve pattern, and I'm going to cut that out of the fabric that I wanted to use each of those for, and I'm going to use the white fabric for the bodice and then the brown for the sleeves, and of course make sure you're fray checking all of those pieces so they don't fall apart on your sewing machine. And I'm actually going to take the scraps of lace that I cut off the skirt, the parts that weren't shown, and I'm actually going to use that just to trim the top of the bodice. Ideally, I probably would have double layered this bodice, sewing good side to good side and flipping it inside out so it had a finished edge, but I didn't think about it and I was just kind of speeding through this part, which looking back I probably shouldn't have done, but you know, what can you do? It's too late in the project now. But moving on to the sleeves, you'll see I have one here on my paint marker, and this is what it's actually going to look like once it's sewn down and complete. And to create that cuff, I just folded a rectangular piece of fabric and sandwiched the lace in between, and then that became the cuff portion of the sleeve. Then I hand stitched all the way around the base of the sleeve, connecting the cuff to the sleeve, and this is what it looks like once it's attached to the bodice. And then what you're going to do is just gather your skirt down until it's the exact length of your bodice, and then I'm just going to sew that down on my sewing machine as well. Once the skirt and the bodice are attached, this is what it looks like, and I think it's so adorable. And of course we're going to finish this back seam with a little bit of ribbon. And here you'll see me working on the petticoat. I wanted to make sure that the petticoat had a nice clean finish, and so I just added a ribbon to that top hem and then also added a snap. I also used this same brown ribbon to finish up the raw hem on the top of the dress before I sewed up that back seam. I decided to make her a matching cape using the same method I used to create the skirts, with the crocheted lace as the trim and the rickrack to finish off those edges, and I'm also going to use these pastel pink buttons to close it. I'll start by attaching the lace to the brown fabric using my sewing machine, and then I'll do the same as for the skirt and hand sew the rickrack on. Here's what that trim looks like once it's placed on, and then I'm just going to use the same brown ribbon to finish that top edge. Now let's move on to the accessories. As stated in my inspiration page, I really wanted to create a bonnet, so here you'll see I'm just folding a little piece of the paper, not quite in half, but kind of into like a quarter, and then I'm just going to sketch out like a half moon shape, and it kind of looks like a teardrop at first, but then you're just going to go in and refine that by creating this small rounded indentation to make it look more like a crescent moon. Of course, this can be any shape that you want. You can make it larger or smaller, just depending on your preference. And here you'll see my pattern pieces that I'll be using for the bonnet, and I did include the measurements for you just in case you have any question about that. And I'm going to transfer that onto some fun foam. I'm going to create 2 of the actual head bonnet pieces and then 1 of each of the others. And then I'm just going to take those 2 bonnet pieces and cover them in designated fabric. I'm actually not sure where the footage for the making of this actually went. I'm a little bit confused, but you can see here it's quite simple. You just glue all of those pieces together and then glue the fabric onto the separating pieces and sandwich some lace in between that, and then just finish it with different odds and ends and ribbons that you have laying around your craft room. I decided to make her a matching pair of bloomers in the pink velvet with a little lace trim, and I think these turned out so cute, and the pattern I actually received from one of my Instagram pals, River, so thank you so much for sending this pattern over for me to test. Here you'll see all the outfit pieces starting to come together, and I would also like to give a special shout out to my pal River, who sent me the pattern for the bloomers in the last clip, for making these amazing cookies for me. She made them out of clay and hand sculpted and shaped and decorated them all herself, and you can find the link to her Instagram in the description box below. But I'm so obsessed with these cookies that she created, and it was just then that I realized I had an excuse to make an additional accessory. You guys know I always love making additional accessories. It's like my thing, and if it's missing from a video, something is probably wrong. So I decided to make a basket to carry these amazing cookies that River made for me. So here you'll just see me measuring out the length that I'm going to need, and I just cut 2 front panels out of 4 sticks and then do the same thing for the side panels, and you're just going to double it up, and then I'm going to measure out support sticks just to kind of hold all of those together, and I'm going to use my trusty hot glue gun and begin to give those support sticks onto the 4 that I had laid out. Here you'll see I have 3 sides complete, and I just have to finish adding those 4 sticks into this final side, again using hot glue. I do find that hot glue is a quick method, but it also can be very messy, so I have this fine tip hot glue gun, and it comes definitely in handy when doing things like this, and especially on doll scale projects. Having this fine tip hot glue gun definitely helps make the project a little bit cleaner. Once you have all 4 of those sides connected, this is what it's going to look like, and I did reinforce some of those seams with more hot glue just to make it a little bit stronger, and then I'm going to use the same fun foam to create a base for it, because again this is going to be covered with fabric, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like because this is all going to be completely covered up. And then I'm just going to hot glue that onto the bottom of the fabric first, and then begin gluing all of the sides of the fabric up onto the actual basket. Then you want to trim all the excess off the edges, and then you just want to begin to line and detail your basket with any of the extra trinkets and fabric that you have laying around. And here's what it looks like when it's complete. You can see I added more rickrack, lined the edges with that same ribbon, added these small little tiny fork bows, and now it's time to add these amazing cookies. Like I said, I'm so thankful. River, thank you so much for creating these amazing little cookies for me. I am completely obsessed. Then you just hot glue the cookies in place, and I also added more small little fork ribbons just to add a little bit more detail, some pearls, and just to make the basket feel a little bit more fun and finished. This is how I had initially styled her hair, and I wasn't in love with it, so I actually ended up taking it down and just doing 2 French braids and adding pastel pink ribbon into it just for a little more detail, which you'll see in the final photos. But before we get there, let's take a look at the outfit and look at how cute all of the finished details come along. So you can see the outfit here, the little bonnet, the basket before it was filled with cookies, and then I actually found these like fishnet white socks in my stock box, and I thought they matched the idea of my outfit so well. Now that that's complete, let's take a look at the final photos. Let's welcome this sweet custom to the Blank Space family. Her name is Noelle Rose. I'm obsessed with her color palette and how the pink complements the chocolate brown tones so well. Let me know what you guys think of Noelle in the comment section below. Another special thanks to Sodal Creations for these amazing goodies. Also, a special thank you to all of you for the amazing support on my channel and enjoying my creations. Remember, you can always see more of my customs on Instagram by following @BlankSpaceDolls, where in my world, there's always a blank space. Let's customize it together. Until next time, Spacers, see you soon.